Picture this. It is 1985. You are sitting at a red light in your brand new Mustang GT. You have 225 horsepower under the hood, and you are feeling pretty good about yourself. The light is about to turn green when you hear it. The subtle whistle of a turbocharger spooling up next to you. You glance over, and what do you see? A boring-looking Buick sedan. Gray paint, wire wheel covers. It looks like something your accountant would drive to the country club. The light turns green. You drop the hammer, and you watch in absolute disbelief as that Buick disappears into the distance like you are standing still. Welcome to the upside-down world of 1980s muscle cars, where nothing was what it seemed. Everyone talks about the golden age muscle cars. The Chevelle SS, the Camaro Z28, the legendary Pontiac GTO. These were the heroes of the 1960s and early 70s, when horsepower was king and gas was cheap. But then came the oil crisis, emissions regulations, insurance companies that treated performance cars like ticking time bombs. By 1980, most people thought the muscle car was dead and buried. The automotive press had written its obituary. Enthusiasts mourned the end of an era. But here is what they didn't know. General Motors was not giving up. They were just getting sneaky about it. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on 12 forgotten muscle machines from the 1980s that flew completely under the radar. Some looked like your grandmother's grocery getter. Others were technological marvels that predicted the future of performance. And the one we saved for last? Let's just say it made Ferraris nervous. These are not the cars you will find in most muscle car documentaries. These are the sleepers, the outliers, the rebels that rewrote the rules when nobody was watching. So buckle up. We are about to take a deep dive into America's secret performance revolution, the hidden muscle cars of the 1980s. Before we dive into the list, let's understand how dramatically the landscape had changed by 1980. The golden age of the muscle car died a slow, painful death throughout the 70s. The Clean Air Act of 1970 introduced emission standards that choked the life out of big block engines. The oil embargo of 1973 made gas-guzzling V8s about as popular as the plague. And insurance companies? They were charging young drivers more to insure a Camaro Z28 than the car was worth. By 1980, the legendary 455 Super Duty from Pontiac was making a pathetic 200 horsepower. The Corvette was saddled with a smog-choked 305 V8. Even the mighty Trans Am had been neutered down to just over 200 horsepower. Performance was dead, or so it seemed. But here is the thing about engineers. They hate being told something cannot be done. While marketing was pushing economy cars and the EPA was tightening the screws, a small group of GM engineers were working in the shadows. They had a radical idea. What if you could make a car fast without making it look fast? What if you could hide serious performance inside boring family sedans? What if the future of muscle cars was not about bigger engines, but smarter ones? This was not just about horsepower anymore. It was about turbochargers, fuel injection, computer controls, aerodynamics that could make 200 horsepower feel like 300. The 1980s muscle car revolution was happening in plain sight, disguised as commuter cars and family haulers. And most people completely missed it. Let's start with the car that fired the first shot. The Buick Regal Sport Coupe, the grandfather of the Grand National, built in 1982 and 1983. On the outside, it looked tame. Wire wheel covers, muted paint, a grille that screamed retirement community. But under the hood, something nobody expected in a Buick: a turbocharger. This was GM's first real attempt at bringing boost to the masses. The heart of the Sport Coupe was a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6, making 175 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. Remember, this was 1982. The Corvette was only making 200 horsepower with a 5.7-liter V8. Buick was almost matching that with an engine half the size. And it wasn't just brute force. The Sport Coupe came with a factory boost gauge right in the dash, a computer-controlled carburetor adjusted fuel mixture on the fly, suspension tuned stiff for performance, not comfort. At just 3,200 pounds, it could sprint 0 to 60 in the high 7-second range. Respectable even today. The future was written here. Turbocharging, computer fuel delivery, driver-facing boost gauges, features we now take for granted, pioneered in this boring Buick. But the problem was just that. It looked boring. Most enthusiasts ignored it, and most were driven by people who had no clue they owned a slice of history. Clean survivors today are like buried treasure. And make no mistake, this car could run high 14-second quarter miles right off the showroom floor, all while looking like a grocery getter. The Regal Sport Coupe was proof that GM's future wasn't about cubic inches. It was about technology, and most people never noticed. The Oldsmobile Cutlass, Calais, HO, from 1984 to 1987. While everyone was watching flashy Trans Ams and Corvettes, Oldsmobile quietly built one of the decade's most underrated performance cars, the Cutlass Calais High Output. Most Calais models were economy-minded compacts, efficient, comfortable, forgettable. The HO versions were different, wolves in sheep's clothing. The secret was balance, not brute force. Oldsmobile's Tech 4 engine, a 2.5-liter four-cylinder, reworked for performance, 150 horsepower and 160 pound-feet in a car that weighed about 2,650 pounds. Do the math. The power to weight put it in serious sports car territory. Pair it with the available 5-speed Getrag manual, and the car came alive. Crisp, positive shifts, ratios that kept the engine right in its sweet spot. Add a sport-tuned suspension with monotube shocks and carefully calibrated anti-roll bars. Now, the Calais HO felt special. Steering offered real feedback for the era. Brakes were adequately sized. Chassis balance was neutral and confidence inspiring. It could run low 15-second quarter miles with a skilled driver, but the real story was the driving experience. Technique over brute force, precision over power, short final drive for punch, civilized highway manners, firm but not punishing ride, a seating position that made you feel in command. Marketing barely mentioned it, so most people never knew it existed. Many were driven into the ground by owners who had no idea what they had. The few survivors are cherished by those in the know. A best-kept secret of 1980s performance. Up next is the car that completely shaped the 1980s and absolutely changed the game. But before I can talk about that, I need you to race to the subscribe button, as 99% of you are not subscribed, and it's my dream to hit 1,000 subscribers. Now, let's talk about the Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS. If you wanted to make a statement in the 1980s, this was the one. Built from 1983 to 1988, the Monte Carlo SS was Chevrolet's declaration that performance was back. Not a sleeper, not subtle, a sledgehammer with attitude. Under the hood sat a 305 cubic inch high output V8, 4-barrel carb, performance cam, dual exhaust, 180 horsepower and 240 pound-feet. The genius was the setup. A 3.73 rear axle launched it hard, and the 4-speed automatic kept it in the meat of the power band. Presence mattered. Long, intimidating hood, sloped rear window, NASCAR-style nose, distinctive rally wheels. When it filled your mirror, you moved. This was not just stickers. This was Sunday to Monday tech. Dale Earnhardt Sr. was winning NASCAR championships in a Monte Carlo, and you could buy the street version. The suspension favored high-speed stability. Steering was heavy but precise at speed. Brake sized for repeated hard stops. It ate interstate miles at triple digits with ease. Inside, real buckets that held you in place. A driver-focused console and useful gauges. Typical GM build quality for the era, but tough enough for abuse. Mid 15-second quarter miles, around 8 seconds to 60 miles per hour. In 1985, that was real muscle. It felt fast. V8 Thunder, linear shove, strong top end for its time. Overlooked then, appreciated now. Proof that American performance had been waiting to roar. The Pontiac Firebird SE 305 HO. From 1982 to 1984, the Firebird SE was the thinking person's Pontiac, overshadowed by the loud Trans Am, but often the better all-around performer. Same basic platform, same 305 high-output V8 with about 190 horsepower and 240 pound-feet, but wrapped in understated European leaning style. Hidden headlights, clean wedge profile, subtle spoiler, tasteful graphics. It could slip past attention. Option it with WS6 suspension for the good stuff. Specially tuned shocks, progressive rate springs, sway bars that turn the F-body into a legitimate sports car. The available Borg Warner T5 5-speed was a revelation for GM positive gates, ratios that matched the engine, short first gear for punch, tall fifth, for relaxed cruising. The driving position was nearly perfect. Supportive seats, proper wheel placement, clear sight lines. You could drive it hard for hours without fatigue. Numbers told the truth. Low 7-second 0 to 60 miles per hour. High 14-second quarter mile. Top speed near 130. More importantly, it was composed, balanced chassis, adequate brakes, rewarding to drive, lighter, more aerodynamic, less image baggage than the Trans Am. Because it did not shout, most people ignored it. Today, clean SEs are rare and prized. Proof that restraint can be its own form of aggression. The Chevy Citation X11. From 1981 to 1985, Chevrolet attempted something audacious, an American hot hatch that could actually handle the Citation X11. Yes, the base Citation had a bad reputation. Premature brake wear, transmission issues, dicey build quality. The X11 was different. Not just stripes and spoilers, a real engineering effort. 2.8-liter V6 tuned for performance, high flow heads, hotter cam, special fuel injection, about 135 horsepower moving roughly 2,650 pounds. The magic was the chassis, larger anti-roll bars, performance shocks and springs, calibrated for aggressive driving. The car wanted to turn instead of plowing straight ahead. Quick, responsive steering, ventilated, fade-resistant brakes for the day, handling balance that was neutral and genuinely fun. Contemporary tests told the story. About 0.77 G on the skid pad. 0 to 60 in just over 8 seconds. Quarter mile in the low 16s. More important than the numbers, it gripped and went. The low center of gravity and layout made it confidence-inspiring. Inside, proper sport seats, a purposeful 3-spoke wheel, and real gauges. It felt like enthusiasts had a hand in it. The tragedy. The base car's reputation doomed it. Praise in the magazines, cold shoulders in the showrooms. Survivors are scarce. Those who know, know. Proof that GM could build a handler long before it became routine. The Pontiac 6000 STE. This was GM taking a swing at BMW. Built from 1984 through 1989, the 6000 STE aimed at European sports sedans and often hit the mark. Loaded with tech that would not be common until the 1990s. Available all-wheel drive as early as 1985. Digital instrumentation. Early radar cruise control for following distance. Anti-lock brakes on later models. Star Trek stuff when most cars were still analog. Power came from a 2.8-liter V6, about 135 horsepower naturally aspirated, around 150 in turbo form. The all-wheel drive system routed torque to where it could bite, so the STE could launch in conditions that left rear-drive cars spinning. McPherson struts up front, independent rear, tuning that prioritized handling. It cornered with minimal roll and maximum confidence. At speed, it felt planted and composed. Inside, a concept car vibe made real. Crisp green digital readouts, supportive seats, logical controls. It could cruise at 80 for hours, carve back roads, and carry 4 adults with luggage. 0 to 60 in the low 8-second range, quarter mile mid-16s. Respectable, but the real strength was the integrated package. In some tests, it outperformed the BMW W31i in key metrics, with better all-weather traction and more advanced electronics for about half the price. It failed to break through because buyers did not expect this from Pontiac. Early tech could be fragile, and it was ahead of its time. Still, it proved American engineers could build sophisticated sports sedans when given the brief. The Oldsmobile 442. Sometimes moving forward means revisiting what works. From 1985 to 1987, Oldsmobile revived the 442 on the G-body with honest muscle values. 5.0-liter V8, about 170 horsepower and 255 pound-feet. 3.73 rear axle, dual exhaust, tuned suspension, rear-wheel drive balance. It sounded right. Deep V8 Thunder, linear shove, from idle to redline. The ride was firm, but livable. Body roll kept in check. Steering precise enough for spirited driving. Brake sized for the task. Aggressive without cartoonish styling. Functional front air dam. Useful side skirts. Subtle rear spoiler. Classic long hood and short deck stance. Mid 8-second 0 to 60 miles per hour. High 15-second quarter mile. Not about bragging rights. About delivering exactly what it promised. with old-school clarity. While others chased turbos and electronics, the 442 perfected the traditional muscle formula for the emissions era. Today, clean examples are finally getting the respect they deserve. Straightforward, honest, effective. The Hurst. Olds. In 1983 and 1984, Oldsmobile teamed up with Hurst to bring back one of the most famous names in American performance. The result was the Hurst Olds, a limited production G-body with exclusivity, style, and a touch of drag strip theater. The exterior was striking, two-tone paint, black over silver or white over silver, gold rally wheels with Hurst logos. Every detail screamed special. Inside, the party piece was the lightning rod shifter setup. 3 separate levers instead of one for first and second, another for third and fourth, the third for reverse and park. It looked wild, and it made driving feel like running a race car. Under the hood sat a 307 cubic inch V8, making 180 horsepower and 245 pound-feet of torque. Not extreme, but tuned for strong torque delivery. The suspension balanced comfort and performance, capable on the highway, entertaining on back roads. Only about 3,000 units were built each year. Each car was numbered and came with paperwork from Hurst. It was less about raw numbers, more about style, rarity, and connection to muscle history. Today, clean examples are collector favorites. A car that proved drama and exclusivity can matter just as much as horsepower. The Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2. Pontiac built one of its rarest muscle cars in 1986, the Grand Prix 2+2, created for one reason: NASCAR homologation. The regular Grand Prix body was aerodynamically challenged. To compete on super speedways, Pontiac redesigned it. Bubble rear window to reduce drag, reshaped nose to slice air more cleanly. Even mirror placement adjusted for better airflow. It still used the familiar 305 high-output V8 at around 190 horsepower. But with aerodynamics working in its favor, the car reached nearly 140 miles per hour. Stability at high speeds was its greatest strength. Only about 1,200 units were built. The interior got special sports seats with 2+2 logos, a center console, and unique gauges. NASCAR teams embraced the design, and the aero advantage helped Pontiac on the track. Today, it is one of the most collectible Pontiacs of the decade. Rare, distinctive, a reminder that sometimes performance cars are built for reasons that have little to do with showrooms. The Camaro IROC-Z, Chevrolet's comeback car. From 1985 to 1989, the Camaro IROC-Z re-established Chevy's credibility. It carried the name of the International Race of Champions, a bold promise that it actually delivered. The highlight was the 5.0-liter twin-port injection V8, about 215 horsepower and 275 pound-feet. Tuned intake runners maximized airflow, and throttle response was crisp. It felt alive. Compared to smog-era V8s, the chassis was stiff, light for the time, and carefully tuned. Progressive rate springs, beefy sway bars, special shocks, skid pad grip around 0.85 G, which was serious sports car territory. Steering quick and precise. Brakes fade-resistant. A package that felt complete and confidence-inspiring. The look matched the performance. Functional ground effects, distinctive wheel graphics that announced its racing roots. Inside, supportive seats and a driver-focused position put you in command. 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds. Quarter mile in the low 14s. Top speed near 150. In the mid-80s, those were supercar-level numbers. The IROC-Z sold well, impressed reviewers, and remains one of the most historically important Camaros ever built. The Buick GNX. By 1987, Buick shocked the world with the Grand National. But then, they went even further. Working with McLaren Performance Technologies, they created the GNX, Grand National Experimental. The heart was a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6, officially rated at 276 horsepower and 360 pound-feet. But the truth was closer to 300 horsepower. Buick deliberately underrated it to protect the Corvette's pride. Performance was staggering. 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. Quarter mile in the low 13s. Faster than a Porsche 911 Turbo. Faster than Ferraris of the era. This was a blacked-out Buick sedan, leaving exotic cars embarrassed. McLaren reworked the suspension, lower stance, stronger geometry, reinforced transmission, larger brakes. It handled better, launched harder, and looked meaner, with flared fenders, functional vents, and stealthy black wheels. Only 547 were built, each numbered, each now worth serious collector money. The GNX proved that turbocharged V6 power could dethrone V8s. It didn't just bend the rules of muscle cars, it rewrote them entirely. The Oldsmobile Firenza W31, one of the strangest experiments GM ever attempted. The Oldsmobile Firenza was meant to be a compact economy car, but someone decided to shoehorn a V8 under the hood. The result was the Firenza W31. Normally, Firenzas had weak four-cylinder engines. The W31 packed a 5.0-liter V8, about 170 horsepower and 255 pound-feet, all sent to the front wheels. In 1985, that was unthinkable. Torque steer was fierce, the engineering challenges immense, yet Oldsmobile pulled it off. Revised mounts, reworked suspension, and beefed-up transmission kept it barely manageable. Graphics announced it was special, but otherwise it looked like a commuter hatch. Performance? Mid 7-second 0 to 60. High 15-second quarter mile. Shocking for what appeared to be an economy car. And only about 750 were ever built. Rare. Wild. A true unicorn. The Firenza W31 was madness on wheels. Proof that sometimes the boldest ideas are the ones that seem insane at first. But some cars were so insane, in the bad sense of the word, that they ended up completely bankrupting and even ruining the brands that created them. I made a full video on 13 cars that did just that, and you can watch by clicking on screen now. Make sure to subscribe, as 99% of you aren't, and I will see you in the next one.